The presidency says President Cyril Ramaphosa will announce his next move in due course when it comes to the Constitutional Court's ruling on the Section 89 report on the Phala Phala farm robbery. The court dismissed the president's bid to challenge Parliament's damning report into Phala Phala. Now, to look at the president's options after the ConCourt ruling, I'm joined by Selby Makgotho, who's a legal commentator. Very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. The president...
Good afternoon, Empo. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to the viewers.
The president has an important decision to make. I mean, he finds himself in a very, very difficult position to institute review proceedings or to not institute. What are his options?
Those are the two available options, Empo. In the context of the Constitutional Court order of this week, of Wednesday, for the Constitutional Court actually to entertain the question of the direct access or exclusive jurisdiction, there should be three things that are in existence. Firstly, it will be the question of the constitutional issue that threatens the constitutionality of the state. Secondly, will be the arguable point of law. And third will be the interest of justice. So the Constitutional Court in this context did not even go to the extent of hearing oral evidence, because in its opinion, the three grounds that I've alluded to were not established. So a proper case was not set out for the Constitutional Court to entertain the prospects of direct access and or exclusive jurisdiction. So the president basically has two options. Firstly will be to institute review proceedings in the lower court with jurisdiction. And the law of civil procedure primarily says the jurisdiction, one of the things that guides the jurisdiction will be where the cause of action arose. So in the given scenario, the cause of action arose in Cape Town, and therefore the Western Cape High Court will be the appropriate legal forum where these legal proceedings ought to be reviewed should he decide to take that course of action. And the second option will be to leave it. But again, to leave it, point the viewers, one needs to understand that in the Section 89 report itself, the former Chief Justice Ngogo did indicate that this was not necessarily a final and binding report. So it will be left to Parliament to see what to do and with the information as contained in the Section 89 report.
Would the findings then be final and binding on whether President Ramaphosa should be impeached or not?
No, at this stage, they are not final, they are not binding. Hence, the president chose to approach the Constitutional Court directly. And in the report itself, it does indicate expressly so that the report is not final, it is not binding. So basically, the ball which would say it's in the hands of the Parliament, unless the president himself institutes the review proceedings, goes to the Western Cape High Court to launch that review application. But if he doesn't do so, then the Parliament might decide to do. But again, we need to be mindful of the fact that there are still various other investigations that are ensuing by other investigating bodies. So it might be a question of waiting for the outcome of those investigations, or to immediately approach the Western Cape High Court, or to leave it to Parliament. So those are the available options at this point in time.
Looking at the options, is it clear at this stage why President Cyril Ramaphosa opted to go directly to the Constitutional Court? I mean, if we have to look back when it comes to testing allegations, looking back to the times of former President Jacob Zuma and upgrades at his Nkandla homestead, and the law and the processes and approach in that instance compared to what we're seeing with Ramaphosa, what stands out for you there?
Well, while reading at the affidavit deposed to by the president, one could see that the primary issue that seemed to have bothered the whole thing relates around the conflation of issues between prima facie evidence as well as sufficient evidence. In the affidavit, the submission by and large is to the extent that the Section 89 report seemed to have conflated the issue, seemed to have misinterpreted the evidence, the weight of the evidence, and confused prima facie with sufficient evidence. And it needs to be pointed out at this stage, Mpho, that sufficient evidence in this situation is one of the necessary requirements for impeachment proceedings in case they were to unfold. So if there is no sufficient evidence, therefore the matter would not be as weighty as it ought to have been approached. And also, the sufficiency of the evidence seems to be a little bit, in my view, the second step, because remember, once a motion is submitted in Parliament, the parties debate, members of the National Assembly come to that determination of putting in place a committee. The weight of the evidence is quite necessary. So in this particular case, much movement has not yet happened, because as soon as the Section 89 report was established and immediately submitted its report, which, by the way, was also rejected by Parliament. So it does not have a legal status and or footing at this stage. So not much movement has happened, but the President seemed to have been quite strong to challenge this particular Section 89 report. And by doing that, it could not therefore have gone to the second stage of establishing an impeachment or ad hoc committee to look into certain alleged irregularities. Therefore, not much has happened. It's up to the President now to decide whether to go to the lower court with jurisdiction, in this case the Western Cape High Court, to leave it, or maybe to wait for the outcome of the other investigating agencies' reports.
Yeah, because when it comes to Parliament, this process is only at its very early stages. I mean, stage one, which shows that it hasn't moved very much.
It hasn't, and also I think we need to give we need to take into account the Constitutional Court's approach in this particular matter, because in 2017, earlier on, you did mention the former president's legal issues relating to security-related upgrades at his private home state in Nkandla. Flowing from that, Parliament was actually directed rather by the Constitutional Court to develop clear rules, clear guidelines relating to impeachment proceedings in as far as the sitting head of state is concerned. So what we are seeing now is the outcome of that judgment, of that 2017 judgment, which now flows into the current legal developments. So this particular discourse is quite necessary, because then from the Parliament side, in as far as the rules are concerned, they have been established, they are quite clear. So it is just a question of the legal processes, the legal challenges that are in place to give effect to the rules as established.
And very lastly, what's your legal take on where this entire matter could go?
It's a difficult one, Mpho, at this stage. Remember, in South Africa, well, I would say the judiciary is accountable to the Constitution and the law. And the President, like any other citizens, does enjoy the constitutional right to have access to the courts and to have an independent court adjudicating upon any legal issue in dispute. Let's wait for the President to give indication as to what his next legal recourse would be, and I think based on that, we will then be in a position to give an adequate comment. At this stage, it will be premature, because we do not know what his next move will be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for weighing in there on what could possibly be next for President Cyril Ramaphosa following the Concord ruling on Wednesday. Legal commentator Selby Makgotho giving us an overview.